The time I witnessed someone being rude to my hairdresser. I've always considered myself someone who appreciates small acts of kindness, especially when it comes to people in service roles. So when I walked into Gloss, my neighborhood hair salon, on a Wednesday afternoon, I expected nothing more than a relaxing hour of being pampered. What I didn't expect was to witness the most frustrating display of entitlement I'd ever seen in a salon. And honestly, it changed the way I see people and myself in ways I never could have predicted. I had an appointment with Lucas, my hairdresser of 2 years and close friend from high school. Lucas is meticulous, creative, and patient. A combination that's hard to find in New York City salons. He knows my hair like it's an old friend, how it responds to humidity, how it likes to be layered, and even the subtle hints I give when I want something different but can't quite articulate it. Today I was feeling adventurous, so I had asked for a cut that was a little shorter than usual with soft layers, plus a subtle balayage to brighten things up for the spring. I trust Lucas completely, which is why this appointment had me buzzing with anticipation. As soon as I stepped in, I noticed a man sitting in one of the waiting chairs. He was mid-40s, sharply dressed, and had this air of impatience that made you want to step lightly around him. I figured he was waiting for his own appointment and didn't think much of it. But then, as I signed in at the front desk, I overheard him snapping at the receptionist about how long the wait was. His voice was sharp, clipped, and just dripping with disdain. I didn't think much of it at first. Some people have stressful days, but there was something about the way he pronounced every word, like it was a personal affront that anyone should have the audacity to exist in front of him, that made my skin crawl. Lucas appeared from the back, greeting me with his usual warm smile. "Hey, Evelyn, ready for something new today?" "Yes, definitely." "Let's do something fun," I replied, sinking into the chair and feeling the familiar comfort of the cape around me. As he began sectioning my hair, the man in the waiting area started a tirade against his stylist, which I couldn't help overhearing. "This is ridiculous. I have meetings. I can't sit here all day. Do you even know what you're doing? I demand to speak to the manager." I glanced up and saw the stylist, a young woman named Mariah, trying her best to remain composed while apologizing over and over. Nobody at the salon deserved to be spoken to like that, but especially not her. She was one of the kindest and soft-spoken people who worked there. Lucas leaned closer as he started cutting, whispering, "Can you believe this guy? He's been like this all morning." "I overheard," I said quietly, frowning. "It's insane. He's ruining the atmosphere for everyone." Lucas nodded, shaking his head. "Some people think they're the center of the universe, Evelyn. Nothing else matters to them." I watched Mariah through the mirror as she handled the man's demands. She smiled politely, answered questions, and tried to explain the process. But it was clear nothing she said could satisfy him. He kept insisting she move faster, cut more, do something, anything, to suit his schedule. And every time she spoke, he raised his voice or interrupted. By the time Lucas and I had started my balayage, he had escalated from impatience to outright rudeness, making snide remarks about the quality of work and questioning the salon's professionalism. I felt my stomach tighten. I hate confrontation. But I also hate seeing people treated unfairly. Something in me snapped when I heard him tell Mariah, "You clearly don't know what you're doing. Maybe I should just leave. This place is a joke." Lucas looked at Mariah through the mirror and said softly, "Do you think I should handle this?" I hesitated. Handle it how? I wasn't about to cause a scene, but I also didn't want Mariah to feel cornered. "Maybe just don't let it ruin my appointment, but don't ignore it either." He gave me a knowing nod and returned to my hair, while I sat there fuming quietly, watching the man continue to assert himself like the world revolved around him. And that's when it hit me that he had no idea the impact of his words. He had no idea how demoralizing it was to belittle someone who had spent years perfecting their craft. I wanted to say something. I wanted to defend her. But the voice in my head said, "Stay calm, don't escalate, just enjoy your appointment." Still, my fingers itched for action. And then it happened. He turned his attention to Lucas. "And you? What are you even doing back there?" Lucas, who is usually unflappable, visibly tensed. There was a brief pause where I could feel the tension radiating from him. Then he smiled, a tight professional smile, and said, I'm just making sure everyone leaves here happy. That includes you, sir, the man scoffed, leaning back in his chair, clearly unsatisfied. But Lucas went on, unfazed, quietly doing his work on my hair while maintaining perfect composure. I wanted to cheer for him. I was in awe of his ability to stay calm. By the time Lucas finished cutting the last few layers, my hair already looked amazing. But the air was still thick with the man's entitlement. I could feel the moment building, the tension practically electric, as though something was about to give. And then it did. I don't know what possessed me to act, but as Lucas was rinsing my hair, I heard the man make another condescending comment toward Mariah. Something about her lack of competence and how he'd never come back unless the manager intervened. That was it. I felt a surge of protective anger that I couldn't ignore. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice so it didn't shake. "Excuse me," I said, standing up from my chair. "I couldn't help but overhear. You don't get to speak to her like that. She's doing her job, and she's doing it well." The man turned toward me, surprise flashing across his face. Then he smiled, a cold, condescending smile. "And who are you exactly? The customer who thinks she's in charge here?" "I'm a customer who respects people," I replied, my hands gripping the back of my chair. "And that includes everyone. In this salon, you have no right to speak to anyone that way." His smile faltered slightly. "Well, I've been waiting for a long time and I demand results." "Yes, but respect is not optional," I said firmly. "You can express your concerns politely or you can leave. But you will not talk down to Mariah or Lucas or anyone else here just because you think you're entitled." For a moment, there was silence. Mariah was looking at me with a mix of gratitude and shock, and even Lucas paused his work to watch. The man's face turned red, clearly unused to being confronted. You can't talk to me like that," he sputtered. "Oh, I can," I said. "And I just did. Now you have two choices. Apologize or leave." The room seemed to hold its breath. For a second, it felt like time slowed down. And then, to my absolute astonishment, he did something I didn't expect. He laughed. Not politely, not nervously, but a genuine, mocking laugh that made my stomach drop. "You think you can tell me what to do in my own time?" he said, still chuckling. "Do you have any idea who I am?" I stood my ground. "It doesn't matter who you are. Here, you follow the rules of respect. That's it." The laughter faded slightly, replaced by a scowl. He huffed, crossed his arms, and muttered something about unbelievable people before storming out of the salon. There was a long, heavy silence after he left. I sank back into my chair, feeling a mix of adrenaline and relief. Mariah exhaled, shaking her head. "Thank you," she said softly. "I've never had a customer stand up like that before. That was incredible." Lucas smiled at me, brushing some strands of hair behind my ears. "You handled that better than I would have. Honestly, Evelyn, that took guts." I waved him off, feeling self-conscious now that the adrenaline had worn off. "I just couldn't watch him treat you or Mariah like that." Mariah smiled, visibly relaxed for the first time since the man arrived. "It means a lot, seriously." I was starting to feel like I had no control, like I couldn't do my job properly without being attacked. "You reminded me I'm not powerless." Lucas started styling the last layers of my hair, the soft balayage catching the light just right. As he worked, I realized that sometimes standing up for someone isn't just about confrontation. It's about showing them that someone sees them, someone acknowledges their effort, and someone refuses to let them be belittled. By the time I left the salon, my hair looked amazing, but more importantly, I felt proud. Proud that I had spoken up, proud that Mariah didn't have to face that alone, and proud that I had shown that even one person's voice can make a difference. The next few days were surreal. I kept thinking about the man and the way he had stormed out, red-faced and muttering, leaving a trail of tension behind him. For a while, I hoped that was the end of it, that my stand in the salon had resolved the problem and I could move on. But life, as it often does, had other plans. It started with small things. I got a notification from social media that someone had posted a review of gloss. Curiosity got the better of me, and I clicked it. My stomach sank immediately. The review was scathing, written by the same man I had confronted. He went on and on about how unprofessional the salon was, how the staff had treated him like dirt, and how he would never set foot in that place again. He even named Lucas and Mariah specifically, painting them as incompetent and lazy. I felt a knot in my stomach. I knew the review was exaggerated, probably even fabricated, but it still hurt to see the people I respected so publicly maligned. I forwarded it to Lucas, unsure if I should say anything. Lucas's response was calm, but there was an edge to it. It's annoying, yeah. But reviews like that aren't the truth. People like him thrive on drama. Don't let him get in your head. I tried to take his advice to heart, but that evening I started noticing comments on the salon's social media posts, subtle digs and passive-aggressive remarks that could only be him or someone following his lead. It was relentless, like a slow drip of irritation. And worst of all, Mariah seemed to be taking it personally. Normally cheerful, she now double-checked every move she made, constantly second-guessing herself, as if she expected another attack at any moment. By the time I went back to the salon the following week for a touch-up, the tension was palpable. Lucas noticed me before I even sat down. "Hey," he said softly, "that man is on our books again. I'll handle him this time. You just focus on relaxing." I appreciated the sentiment, but I couldn't help feeling guilty. Maybe if I hadn't stood up for her, none of this would have happened. Maybe my defense had escalated things in ways I hadn't foreseen, and then, of course, he showed up. The man, let's call him Mr. Carlton, walked in like he owned the place, scanning the room with that same condescending air. The receptionist tried to stay calm, but you could see her jaw tighten. "Mr. Carlton," Lucas said quietly as he approached. "Him, we're ready for you now." "I hope this will be worth my time," he said, smirking, glancing at Mariah. She forced a polite smile, her hands gripping a comb like a lifeline. I swallowed hard, feeling that familiar surge of protective energy. I wasn't about to let him torment her again. But before I could think of what to do, Lucas stepped forward. He didn't raise his voice, didn't snap. He simply said, "We're here to make sure you get a good experience. But you will treat the staff with respect. That's non-negotiable." Mr. Carlton blinked, clearly surprised. "Excuse me?" "I said respect," Lucas repeated firmly. "If you can't do that, you're welcome to leave, and we can reschedule for someone else." For a moment, I expected an argument, maybe even a scene, but instead, he laughed. This time, it was a nervous, forced laugh. He muttered something about difficult people and sat down. I think he realized that Lucas wasn't someone he could intimidate. As he settled in, I sat back in my chair, watching Lucas and Mariah handle the appointment with their usual professionalism. But I also realized something important. This wasn't just about a haircut anymore. This was about boundaries, about the power dynamics in everyday life, and about standing up for what's right, even when it's uncomfortable. The situation with Mr. Carlton didn't improve after that day. It escalated. Over the next week, he started calling the salon at odd hours, demanding priority service and threatening to leave bad reviews if he wasn't accommodated immediately. He even posted on local neighborhood forums painting the salon as hostile and incompetent. The salon was small, but well-loved. Regulars supported Lucas and Mariah, but you could feel the stress. Employees whispered about him in the back room, discussing what they should do if he returned. Mariah, who had always been confident, seemed to shrink a little more each day, her smiles tighter, her hands trembling slightly during appointments. I knew I couldn't just sit back. I decided to get involved in a way that wouldn't make things worse. I started by leaving glowing, detailed reviews online, highlighting not just Lucas's skill, but the professionalism of the entire staff. I also reached out to a few neighborhood friends, asking them to share their positive experiences. Slowly, we began to counterbalance the negativity. One Friday afternoon, I went back for a routine trim, and there he was again, sitting in the waiting area with that same smug expression. I felt my stomach twist. But this time, I wasn't alone. Mariah stood behind the reception desk, Lucas at the station, and I took my seat with a newfound determination. He smirked when he saw me. "Back for more commentary, I see," he said, his tone dripping with mockery. I leaned back in my chair, smiling calmly. "No commentary. Just here to get my hair done. And to support good people." Lucas and Mariah exchanged glances, both clearly buoyed by my presence. And that's when it happened. something I hadn't anticipated. Mr. Carlton, used to intimidation and control, realized he was outnumbered. The combined confidence of the staff and a customer willing to stand up shook him more than any words could. The next 20 minutes were tense. He tried to make passive-aggressive remarks, questioned Lucas's methods, and even attempted to call Mariah over for special instructions. But every time, Lucas politely deflected, maintaining control without escalating. And I added my calm but firm presence, reinforcing the boundaries. By the time the haircut was finished, he was visibly frustrated, fuming silently, but he couldn't make a scene. He paid and left, muttering under his breath, and I realized something incredible. Sometimes, consistent, quiet strength is more powerful than confrontation or shouting. As the door closed behind him, Mariah finally exhaled. I don't even know what to say. That was exhausting, but I feel empowered somehow. Lucas smiled at both of us. It's amazing what a little support can do, isn't it? I nodded, looking at them. We've got this. He doesn't get to control us. A week passed, and Mr. Carlton seemed to disappear from the salon, at least for a little while. But the tension he'd created lingered like a shadow. Lucas and Mariah were back to their usual rhythms, but I could still see subtle traces of stress in their movements, tiny hesitations that weren't there before. I wanted to do more than just offer moral support. I wanted to help them reclaim not only their confidence but the sense of control he had tried to steal. One evening, I sat at my kitchen table scrolling through local community boards and salon forums. That's when an idea hit me. Instead of reacting to him, we could take the initiative. We could shine a light on the quality of the salon, its professionalism, and its loyal clientele. I messaged a few of my friends, people who were regulars at Gloss, and explained the situation. They were enthusiastic. One friend even offered to share her positive experience publicly, with before and after photos of her own hair done by Lucas. The next morning, Lucas opened the salon's social media accounts to find an outpouring of support. Real customers were sharing photos, tagging the salon, praising both him and Mariah for their skill and professionalism. The comments flooded in with phrases like, "Best haircut ever," "Mara saved my hair after a disaster," and "Lucas is incredible, don't listen to the trolls." I watched Lucas's expression change as he scrolled through the feed. The tight line of stress around his mouth softened, and he actually laughed. "Wow, that's amazing," he said. I didn't realize how many people were silently supporting us. Mariah joined him, tears in her eyes. It feels good to be seen for the work we actually do, not just the drama some entitled person tries to create. That afternoon, I went in for my appointment, and as I walked through the door, a wise, small crowd of regulars had gathered for their appointments. There was energy, positivity, and an unmistakable sense of solidarity. And then I heard a familiar, smug voice from the corner. Mr. Carlton had returned, probably expecting to find us broken or intimidated. He walked in, scanning the salon, but instead of the nervous silence he expected, he was met with a chorus of cheerful greetings from staff and customers alike. "Hello, Mr. Carlton, we're ready when you are," Lucas said calmly, almost kindly. His smirk faltered. "I just want my hair cut," he muttered, clearly thrown off by the warm, confident atmosphere. As he took a seat, he realized something important. The power he thought he had was gone. He was no longer the center of attention. Instead, he was just another customer among many who respected the people working in that space. Throughout the appointment, I watched him grow increasingly uncomfortable. Every time he tried to make a passive-aggressive comment, someone politely but firmly corrected him. When he tried to demand special treatment, a customer ahead of him gently reminded him that no one was above the rules. By the time he left, he looked defeated. Not angry, just powerless. It was a quiet, almost poetic downfall. Lucas turned to me after he left, smiling. "You know, Evelyn, I don't think I've ever seen him like that before. Thank you. Your support made a huge difference." I waved him off, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with my hair. "You didn't need me. You two are incredible at what you do. I just helped make sure the world saw it too." Mariah, standing behind the reception desk, added, "Honestly, I feel like I can breathe again. Thank you for standing up for us." And in that moment, I realized how important it is to stand up for the people around you. Not with violence or shouting, but with quiet courage, community support, and unwavering respect. Weeks later, the salon was thriving more than ever. Word had spread about Gloss, not because of a scandal, but because of the unwavering professionalism and community spirit that Lucas, Mariah, and the regulars had created. Mr. Carlton never returned, at least not publicly, and it seemed he had been quietly defeated through the collective support and the simple principle of respect. I kept returning for my appointments, each time feeling more connected not just to Lucas and Mariah, but to the little community the salon had become. There was laughter, chatter, and the kind of camaraderie that only forms when people face challenges together and come out stronger. One afternoon, as Lucas was finishing a haircut, he looked at me in the mirror. "You know, Evelyn, this whole thing could have gone very differently if no one had stood up. Thank you for being brave." I smiled, feeling a rush of pride and humility all at once. I didn't do anything extraordinary. I just couldn't sit there and watch someone disrespect people who deserve better. Sometimes that's all it takes. As I left the salon that day, my hair perfectly styled and the sunlight catching the soft balayage just right, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The rude customer, the tension, the frustration had all led to something better, a stronger, more supportive community, and a reminder that courage, respect, and kindness can be contagious. In the end, the salon was not just a place for haircuts anymore. It was a place where respect, professionalism, and community triumphed over entitlement and cruelty. I couldn't stop smiling. Sometimes the smallest acts of courage lead to the most satisfying victories. And as I stepped into the sunlight, I realized that standing up for what's right doesn't just change other people's lives, it changes yours too.